I want to introduce Seok-Young, who's a new member of our programming committee. Earlier, she programmed a show called Margins of Dream Language with new works by Korean experimental filmmakers, which was really wonderful. So we invited her to join the programming committee, and we're delighted now to host her presenting this very moving show for all of you in her first endeavor with us in that way. But I want to thank her very much for bringing this wonderful show to us. And then at the end of the show, we're delighted to have two of the filmmakers here in conversation, Xiao Zhang and abbi. So, but here with that, to introduce the show, please join me in welcoming Seok-Young.
Thank you so much for making this happen. I want to introduce this creation a little bit. This creation program originates directly from my heart and personal experience since I lost my father a few years ago. I think grief is very continuous, long, and tedious process. It has no resolution. But through this film, done by Sarah Pusil, Onyu Oh, Jung Yunan, Xiao Zhang, Celeste Oliver, and Abby Page, I hope you find some hope within grief. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'll see you after.
I would like to start the moderation with a simple question. These two performances and films are world premiere and has been only with these two filmmakers for a long time. And I want to ask, how does it feel to watch it with the audience? And does it play differently in this context than you might have anticipated?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, no, I made this film back when I first started filmmaking, when it was like this very new territory for me. That's something I was super uncomfortable with, and I think I sort of leaned on performance as a way of accessing the film, and so to then get to perform in front of an audience rather than, I guess, performing for a camera for myself, I don't know, I think it like opens up the piece a lot. I can like feel the energy in the room, and I think that was very exciting for me. And just to see it also in this program with so many amazing films, it was really lovely, and it was really amazing to see the connections between them. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I will feel a little bit nervous more than and exciting at the same time because I just finished this film like 1 month ago, and then and then the topic that I discussed in this film is kind of like counts as a secret before in my like teenage life. And then I think it's my first time to be transparent to talk about this with you, with my audience and with like you guys. So I'm excited at the same time. Yeah.
I would love to ask about your choice about self-performance, especially these two films and performance are grounded in first-person cinema. And I want to ask, what does it mean to reenact a specific event on screen? Or what does it feel to put yourself in your film? So, could you go first?
Oh yeah. I think for me, before I started like make this film, I got the inspiration from my grandmother who passed away because of the lung cancer. And then after that, I looked deeper and what the reason why I want to to work on this film, and then I feel like I have to speak of my story after getting inspiration from her, and then I think I wanted to present a voice of I and a voice of myself. So I feel like this film is also another representation of how, as a filmmaker, as well as a person that I presented within the frame, and then how I can retell the story and how I can process this. It was kind of like split process for me as a self-performance while I'm making this film. I feel like it's very unique experiences for me, and I wanted to present a sincerity for my audience. Sincerity for my audience, and I wanted to present myself. And now it's time to tell the story about myself. Yeah, so this is my choice to present myself in front of the camera.
Yeah. What about Abby?
Yeah, so there's sort of this concept that I've been thinking about for a while. Hortense Spillers, who's a Black Studies theorist, she has this essay called Mama's Baby, Papa's Maybe, in which she talks about this idea of flesh, or the Black body like becoming flesh or being ungendered. And so I think a lot of times in my filmmaking practice, I'm thinking a lot about sort of like generational or intergenerational trauma when it comes to that, and sort of like a temporal scarring or temporal lashing, and exploring like filmmaking and performance as a mode of healing, and sort of a mode of building that scar tissue, and like creating in a lot of ways new memories or new ways of being. Like, I don't remember most of my childhood for own personal reasons, and so also like a lot of my work is explaining or exploring like re-remembering or creating memories for myself based off of that. So yeah.
On that note, you guys managed to balance out really main three components, which are like image, sound, and text or narration. I want to hear more about the writing process. Text and narration are core of your film. The poetics, especially of text, pierces through truth and loss. Could you speak a little bit about your writing?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so like I said already, I'm very interested in this understanding of a healing practice, or a way of like re-remembering or creating new memories, and in that way it creates also like a multiplicity of selves. And so in my poem, I'll use like I, or like I'll use like am, was, because I'm like interrogating this concept of time, or my experience of childhood in its way that it's like happening currently for me, because I'm making a childhood for myself actively. And so I think like a lot of my, like in terms of like the text itself, it has a lot to do with like trying to get at and integrate this concept of time and healing and all of these things as well. Yeah.
For Xiao, I want to, like on that Abby's note, I want to ask, like really important formal strategies that you used in your film, like such as time lapse and everything else. I want to specifically ask, what does it mean to stretch and warp time in your film? Because Abby spoke about building up their childhood and stuff. How does it connect specifically to theme of grief and fluidity? I will ask you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think because I think my strategy in this film that I use most of is hand processing, 16mm, and intervalometer shooting. And then, so based on my experiences, I wanted to represent my experiences about like a night, like waiting for a night, and the experiences in the night, and the wake up after night passing. So I wanted to present a dynamic, complete state of being from daytime to midnight, from dry to wet, from wet to evaporation. And then I think then I figured out in terms of like technical way, I can use intervalometer to stretch the time in like 16 hours that I can scratch into like few seconds that I can present in the image. So I choose the intervalometer, and then in terms of like hand processing decision choices is because I want to represent a fluid in my film that based on my relationship between the liquid leaking out of my budget without any notice. And I wanted to add this kind of like uncertain, fluid, ever-changing state of this sets in my film. Yeah.
Thank you, Xiao.
Thank you.
Last question for Abby. So Xiao talked about the state of leaking and letting out something from the body. And you guys' performance and film play back to back in a juxtaposition. And Abby, I think you really talk about active consumption. So I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting that Xiao's film like has a lot of letting out and this sort of like, I think you used the word overflowing as well, because that's something that I feel like I relate to in my own work and in my own film. Another theorist that I really love is Amber Jamila Musser, who has this amazing book, Sensual Excess, Black and Brown Queer Jouissance. And in that book, she like talks a lot about the connection between like consumption, sensuality, and like I said already, this like sort of reclaiming of time or reclaiming of ancestry. And so I'm thinking in the film with the actual act of consuming these words and the actual act of consumption, the way it like nourishes the body as well. And in the poem, I talk about like swallowing my maternal ancestors and sort of like what I carry of them with me and this like too muchness of that, and like how to sort of address those things or like try to find a way to navigate through that. So yeah, just
Thank you so much, guys, again. And please feel free to talk to our filmmakers and me outside in the hallway and enjoy the bar. Thank you.